Letting go. Two words that seem simple, but they carry a kind of weight, not measured in pounds or grams, but in memories, meaning, and moments. Letting go of a worn-out jacket can feel like shedding a season of your life. Letting go of a friendship can feel like betraying a version of you that needed it once. Letting go of a belief, a routine, a dream, can feel like erasing part of your identity. Because behind every object we release, behind every relationship we walk away from, behind every habit we choose to end, there's a deeper story, a quiet thread running beneath the surface, a story of who we've been, of who we thought we needed to be, of what we feared we'd lose if we dared to loosen our grip. It's a story of identity, of fear, of attachment, and perhaps most powerfully, a story of regret. Not just the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet ache of what if. The lingering voice that whispers, did I hold on too long? Did I let go too soon? Did I make a mistake? Welcome back to the Minimalist Living Lab. I'm Hart, and today we're stepping into one of the most tender and transformational spaces within minimalist living. The art of letting go without regret. Because this isn't just about decluttering closets or clearing your schedule. It's about something deeper, more invisible, more intimate. It's about the emotional clutter, the unfinished conversations, the expectations we never asked for but still carry, the fears that take up space in our hearts. So what does it really mean to practice emotional minimalism? To look inside and gently, intentionally, release what no longer serves us, without being haunted by the should-haves and what-ifs? That's the journey we're about to take together. Let's dive in. 1. The silent weight of emotional clutter. We all understand physical clutter. A drawer that won't close. A closet overflowing with clothes we don't wear. A garage we keep meaning to organize, but never do. It's visible, tangible. We can point to it and say, that's the problem. But emotional clutter is different. It doesn't pile up in corners or spill out of boxes. It settles quietly in the background. Behind smiles, behind habits, behind the way we react. It's harder to name, harder to see, and much, much harder to let go. Because emotional clutter disguises itself. Sometimes it looks like a friendship you've outgrown, but keep nurturing out of guilt. You tell yourself it's loyalty, but deep down you feel drained every time you meet. Sometimes it's a childhood memory, one you've replayed so many times that it feels like a scar you can't stop touching. You think revisiting it gives you control, but all it gives you is pain. And sometimes it's the most subtle form of clutter, a version of yourself you keep comparing your present life to, the version who achieved more, or suffered less, or simply believed that by now you'd be somewhere else. These are the things we carry. Not in backpacks, not in storage units, but in our minds, in our hearts, in the quiet in-between spaces of our days. They follow us into new relationships. They echo in the way we speak to ourselves. They live in the pauses between choices, nudging us, holding us back, dimming our presence. Emotional clutter isn't loud. It's not urgent. It doesn't demand attention, but it demands energy. And over time, it takes up space. Space that could be filled with clarity, with joy, with peace. And yet, we rarely stop to ask, why am I still holding this? What am I afraid will happen if I let it go? And who might I become if I didn't carry this anymore? That's the quiet revolution of emotional minimalism. It doesn't begin with purging a shelf. It begins with noticing what's weighing you down, even if no one else can see it. It asks a daring question. What if I don't need to carry this anymore? Not everything we carry is ours to keep. And not everything we keep is helping us live. 2. Why letting go feels like losing. Letting go is often framed as something positive. Just let it go, they say. You'll feel so much lighter. And yes, eventually, we do. But what people rarely talk about is how much it hurts at first. Because letting go doesn't always feel like freedom. At least not immediately. At first, it feels like loss. We don't just release the object, the person, or the memory. We release a piece of who we were with it. That friendship? Maybe it reminded you of a time when you felt needed. That journal or photo? It held the last connection to someone you've lost. That belief you're outgrowing? It helped you survive when you didn't know how else to cope. So when we let go, grief shows up. Not just over what's gone, but over who we were with it, and who we might have to become without it. It's no wonder we resist. We tell ourselves we're being loyal, that holding on is noble, that the pain of staying is somehow more bearable than the pain of change. And we fear what others might think. You're giving up too soon. You're making a mistake. You'll regret it. But here's the truth. Letting go isn't always about quitting. Sometimes it's the bravest thing we can do. It's not a betrayal of your past. It's an act of trust in your future, in your growth, in your right to live without being weighed down by what no longer aligns. The fear of regret, that quiet hum in the back of your mind, isn't proof that you're making the wrong decision. Often, it's proof that you're standing on the edge of something real. A shift, a truth, a chapter you're meant to walk into, even if your hands are trembling. You might feel like you're losing a part of yourself, but you're also making space for a new part of yourself to emerge. Minimalism, true minimalism, isn't sterile. It's not just white walls and empty shelves. It's emotional courage. It's choosing to feel the discomfort of detachment, so you can reach the clarity of alignment. So yes, letting go feels like losing, but only until you realize you've been losing yourself by holding on. 3. The art of emotional editing. We're used to editing the outside world. We edit photos. We edit resumes. We edit emails before clicking send. But emotional editing? That's different. That's intimate. And it requires honesty of the highest kind. Emotional minimalism isn't about cutting yourself off from feeling. It's not about becoming cold, or distant, or unbothered. It's about becoming intentional. About what you allow to take root in your inner world. Just like a good writer knows when a sentence no longer serves the story, you begin to sense when a belief, a thought, or a memory no longer serves your becoming. You don't erase your past because it was bad. You let go because the story has moved on. Because you have moved on. Here's how we begin that process. With gentleness, not judgment. With awareness, not avoidance. Step 1. Acknowledge the weight. You can't release what you haven't fully faced. So pause. Name what's there. This memory still hurts. This relationship makes me feel small. This version of myself doesn't fit anymore. Naming it doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. Step 2. Ask, is this helping me grow or keeping me stuck? Not, was this ever useful? But, is it still serving me now? That's the powerful question of minimalism. Whether it's an old shirt or a deeply rooted belief. If the answer is no, you don't need to justify keeping it. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to change your mind. And yes, you're allowed to let go of something that once meant the world to you. Step 3. Create a ritual of release. Emotions don't just disappear. They need ceremony. They need acknowledgement. They need space to exit gracefully. So write the letter you'll never send. Burn the note. Take the walk. Cry the tears. Light the candle. Say the goodbye. You're not being dramatic. You're being human. These rituals matter. They help the heart catch up to the decision the mind has already made. You're not just editing for simplicity. You're editing for meaning. When we reduce emotional noise, we amplify emotional truth. When we release what's false, we begin to live in alignment with what's real. And when we stop clutching so tightly to what used to define us, we begin to discover who we really are now. Emotional editing is an act of self-respect, a quiet revolution, a reclaiming of space, not just in your home, but in your inner life. 4. Regret is a sign of growth. Regret. It's one of the most human emotions, and also one of the most misunderstood. We treat regret like a red flag, a warning, a sign that we've failed or made the wrong turn. But what if regret isn't the enemy? What if it's not a signal that you messed up, but a whisper that you've outgrown something? When you start letting go, whether it's a person, a habit, or a long-held belief, regret might follow close behind. You'll hear the voice. Maybe I should have held on just a little longer. What if that was my only chance? Did I make the right decision? These are not questions of failure. They are echoes of change. Proof that you are in motion. Proof that you are awake to your life. Because growth is disorienting. It involves shedding skin, leaving behind comfort, choosing presence over nostalgia. And yes, that can feel like loss. Even when you're heading towards something better. Even when you know it's the right path. Regret shows up not just when we've done wrong, but when we've dared to do something different, to be someone different. So instead of asking, why do I feel regret? Try asking, what does this regret reveal about what I value? Sometimes, regret teaches us what matters most. Sometimes, it tells us we loved deeply, or hoped boldly, or cared so much it hurt. But here's what emotional minimalism invites us to remember. You can honor what was without staying in it. You can grieve the goodbye and still move forward with peace. You can feel regret and not let it write the next chapter. There's a quiet beauty in realizing that you don't need to be flawless to be free. That every step, even the hesitant ones, have led you here, to this moment of clarity. Maybe you let go before you were ready. Maybe you stayed longer than you should have. But maybe, just maybe, that was part of the lesson. The goal isn't to avoid regret forever. The goal is to live deeply enough that when it comes, you greet it with compassion, not shame. Regret doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally chose yourself. And that, my friend, is growth. 5. Living with empty space. Letting go sounds like an ending. But what often surprises us most is what comes after. The quiet, the pause, the space. We declutter a drawer, and suddenly there's nothing in it. No mess. No distraction. Just room. And that same thing happens when we release emotional clutter too. A friendship ends. A story is closed. A belief is laid down. And in its place, silence. We say we want freedom. But here's the truth. Freedom can feel empty at first. Because we're used to noise. We're used to filling. We fill time with tasks. We fill silence with scrolling. We fill emotional discomfort with distraction. So when we finally create space, it can feel uncomfortable, unfamiliar, even unsettling. But space is not a void. It's an invitation. Empty space is possibility. It's the quiet before the new idea comes. The breath before the next relationship forms. The stillness before you remember who you are. Beneath all the layers. Emotional minimalism teaches us to trust the pause. To stop rushing to fill the silence. To let the spaciousness stretch. Because what comes next will only be as true as the space you make for it. And it's not just about what you let in. It's about who you become when you stop being tangled in everything you've let go. With fewer emotional entanglements, you begin to think more clearly, breathe more deeply, respond instead of react, choose presence over patterns. In that space, your intuition has room to speak, your body has room to rest, your heart has room to dream again. So if you find yourself in a season of emptiness, where something has ended, but nothing new has begun, know this. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're simply in between. And in between is sacred ground. It's where transformation takes root, where seeds grow in silence, where you begin to live by design, not default. Letting go isn't just about removing. It's about remembering that your life was never meant to be crowded. That space isn't something to fear. It's something to honor. Because space is where your real life finally has room to unfold. Letting go is letting in. So much of our lives are spent holding on to identities that no longer fit, to expectations that aren't ours, to memories we keep revisiting, hoping they'll change, to people, routines, roles, and stories that once made sense, but now only take up space. We're taught that holding on is strength, that endurance is noble, that letting go is surrender. But what if the opposite is true? What if real courage is in the release? What if strength looks like opening your hands, not to lose something, but to finally receive something new? What if surrender isn't about giving up, but about trusting yourself enough to say, I no longer need this to be who I am? Emotional minimalism is not cold. It's not harsh. It's one of the most loving things you can offer yourself. It's the gentle act of saying, I deserve clarity. I deserve peace. I deserve to stop carrying what hurts me just because it once helped me. You're not erasing your story. You're editing it with wisdom, with kindness, with a clear-eyed commitment to your present life. Not just the life you thought you were supposed to live. Yes, letting go may bring regret. Yes, it might stir grief. Yes, it may feel like something is missing. But in that space, new things can grow. You will laugh again. You will create again. You will trust again. You will meet yourself again. This time, without all the weight. So if you're standing at the edge of a decision today, if you feel something tugging to be released, if your heart knows it's time, but your hands are trembling, know this. Letting go is not a closing. It's a clearing. a way of making space for who you're becoming. And you, dear listener, deserve to become. Thank you for sharing this quiet, sacred space with me today, for being brave enough to look within, for exploring what it means to live lightly, not just on the outside, but deep within your soul. I'm Evan Hart, and this has been Minimalist Living Lab. Until next time, live simply, feel deeply, and let go, so you can truly let in.